everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, a week and a day late. Because, let's be frank, I've given up. I hope to someday return to having my regular Thursday interludes, but we're maybe not going to be doing that for a while, just because I have not been having the wherewithal to read a book for the channel, because there are books that I read that I just don't want to do for the channel for various reasons, whether it's because it's a book that I feel would be too controversial, or because I am reading more fan fiction than actual novels, and I am doing actual books on this channel, not fanfic. If I wanted to do fanfic, we would be having a different channel. If I get 1,000,001 people showing up in my comment section out of the absolute clear blue sky saying they want to hear me talk about fanfic, I can do that, but I know that there are 5 people watching my videos, no matter the fact that I have 500 subscribers, because we all mean that subscribing means absolutely nothing save for the algorithm. It's only when people set up the notification bell so they know when somebody drops a new video that it actually means anything, and even then it doesn't mean anything unless they go watch the video. So, frankly, there are 5 people, maybe, who are watching any given video at any given time. And by watching, I mean people who actually seriously watch most of the way through, as opposed to people who watch for 3 seconds, realize that I am neither reading the book nor talking about something in a lucid, well-edited, elucidating something manner. I don't know. People expect things from this channel that they're not getting. Since, let's be frank, the aim of this channel was for me to sound like somebody aimlessly maundering at a friend in a coffee shop about a book that they just read that they liked. Anyways, so, 3rd book of the Baba Yaga trilogy. There are... Interesting. Tamora Pierce, best-selling author of the Circle Reforged novels? How intriguing. Anyways, those who know anything about Tamora Pierce will may not understand why I find that particularly intriguing. But anyways, I haven't actually read The Circle Reforged. That's a thing I just know of. Anyways, so, 3rd Baba Yaga novel. This is the end of the trilogy. This is followed up by the trilogy about the 3 riders who are significant characters in this in a way that they were not in the previous 2. They were bigger characters, more important characters in the first novel, because Barbara Yager, the first Baba Yaga, the eldest and the one in the first book, her introduction with the riders has to do with the fact that she has been friends with them for close to a century. She is 87 years old. I mean, she looks like she's in her early 30s, but she's 87. And the thing about that is that she's known them longest and they are more her friends than anything else. And so when they show up in the first novel, they're present. They are characters. They have interactions with her and with Liam and with the world. In the second novel with Becca, they're really not discussed. And that, they show up for a second. But what really happens in the second novel is we hear that one of them has gone missing and the other 2 are looking. And this 3rd book is where we find out what happened to these 3 riders. Now, the 3 riders are these 3 men who have, up until the end of this novel, been immortal, and they had magic steeds who these days are motorcycles, because seeing somebody riding a horse down the highway at highway speeds would be really, really weird. And, motorcycles just require gas, whereas horses require a great deal more maintenance. So they have motorcycles now. Much like the Baba Yaga's mysterious hut with the chicken legs has now turned into various living in vehicles, whether it is an adapted school bus or a trailer or whatever, camper van. The point is that you have all of these things that in another age and time were something much more mystical and magical, but these days, because you can't hide in the woods the way you once did, because people wouldn't believe things the way they once did, they have to camouflage. And so, back to the actual point of this, you have the writers. And the mentor of the second Baba Yaga, Becca, her mentor Brenna, has gone just nuts. She's gone off the reservation, pick your metaphor, whether offensive or not. And what you have is a crazy woman who has decided that she's going to get a facsimile of this magical water of life and death created by the Queen of the Otherworld. So she's basically like the Queen of the Fae. It's a kind of a bog standard depiction of the Fae, of the people of the other world, the fair folk, however you want to think of them, with that vaguely threatening, idiosyncratic, not caring about anything but their own personal entertainment and goals. So the Queen of the Other World is not kind, and she is not particularly deeply caring, but she is ultimately, sort of in the grand scheme of things, a force for good. To an extent, she does things for people she likes, but to an extent it's also that she's the kind of pragmatic person who says, if everything gets screwed up, then my whole universe falls apart, and what good does that do me? And so she can be very, very idiosyncratic and cruel and aggressive and unforgiving. But what you get is a very, very powerful Fae queen. Anyhow, so she makes the water of life and death, which is guarded by Chudo Yudo, who is a dragon, except Chudo Yudo is apparently a species of dragon or something, because each Baba Yaga has her own Chudo Yudo. The first two have them disguised as cats, and the third one, here, Bella, hers is disguised the first two are disguised as dogs, rather, and Bella's is disguised as a cat. Apparently, he got sick of pretending to be a dog and decided to be a cat for a while, so he's like one of those Maine Coons that are like, 3/4 bobcat, and you're vaguely terrified of them because they're cats, except they're huge for domestic cats. Anyway, so Brenna's gone crazy. She's kidnapped the riders in order to create a facsimile of the water of life and death, which she has done by taking on by following the directions by somebody known to Baba Yagas as Crazy Piotr. And Crazy Piotr is somebody who took the water of life and death and went crazy and tried to come up with like a magical way of doing so by draining people's life force and stuff. Anyway, so Brenna does this with the riders because they're immortals, and she thinks that's sort of what the key that will make it finally work. And Bella spends basically the book trying to figure out who's setting these magic forest fires and what's happening. By the end of the book, of course, they rescue the riders, but it's too late, and the riders have basically become mortal, that Brenna has siphoned so much out of them that they are not what they once were. So that there is therefore a follow-up trilogy. I probably mentioned it already. There are 3 writers, 1 book per each. The third book is self-published because I suspect that she just didn't sell enough of her books ongoing for a major publisher to keep publishing. Anyway, so Bella. We have, of course, our cover here with a picture of Bella. Each of the Baba Yagas has a sort of an elemental lean, which is, I suspect, more one of those things that different people with different personalities will have different affinities for different elements, and Bella's affinity is for fire. And her big personal, mental, psychological block has to do with the fact that because she had an affinity for fire, when she was much, much younger, she accidentally set somebody on fire without meaning to, that they had got into a jealous spat over a boy, she and her best friend, and she accidentally set her friend on fire and permanently traumatized her. And then, of course, was traumatized herself, and never quite got over it, and is basically convinced that she cannot be with people because she will destroy their lives. And you actually have a lovely scene where she's talking to somebody, and she's like, and she has a romantic interest. He's a former wildfires firefighter who got caught in one and has, trauma and injury and whatnot, and they work out in the end. Anyways, so she's falling in love with him, and she had apparently, gesticulated with fire at him as sort of a, see, I am a witch and you should be scared of me, woo moment. And she freaks herself out and goes and runs off, and she's talking to somebody about how, and I threw fire at him and it's terrible, and her thing, and is like, okay, you threw fire at him and he caught fire? Well, no. Did he scream? No. Did you catch his clothes on fire? No. But I could have, she says. And it's sort of like, yeah, but you didn't, and you didn't even mean to, and you just kind of gesticulated with fire. You maybe need to dial back on the self-recrimination just a bit if you're not even having temper tantrums where you're thinking of throwing fire at people. If all you're thinking of is, I'm going to hold fire in the palm of my hand and wave it in the air, maybe you need to stop freaking out that you're going to kill everyone around you with it. But that's her big psychological block. Like, each of them has, personal issues to keep them from being perfect because, perfect people are boring or something to that effect. Either that or they're Mary Poppins, and Mary Poppins is weird. But the book Mary Poppins is also weird. It's kind of a toss-up how book versus movie Mary Poppins is weirder. I'm, by the way, not going to talk about the Mary Poppins books. They were fine, but they're not something that I remember with such great fondness that I want to go to the effort of digging them up, just if you're wondering. But back from my sidebar of practically perfect people, Barbara Yager's big mental block is just, I am so alien that I cannot get along with people, and Liam the cop is like, you're a hot chick who's smart and independent and I like you. I fail to see what you being human has to do with any of this. So she deals with that, and we talked about Becca in the last video, and the fact that Brenna basically ripped her sense of self-confidence to pieces, in a very Mother Gothel way. And finally, you have Bella here, who managed to freak herself out, and one gets the feeling that her mentor had one of those good parenting form, little shaky on the dismount moments where her mentor just didn't have the right thing to say in response to help her get over it, rather than that her mentor was some kind of a problem. But anyway, so Bella eventually deals with stuff, and also adopts a teenager who is arguably too old to be trained as a Baba Yaga, but they manage to convince people that she should be trained anyways because Jazz is extremely talented, and Jazz declares that she is not changing her name, that there are way too many women with B names, and she can be a Baba Yaga named Jazz. She does not, in fact, have to be somebody with the first name beginning with B and her surname beginning with Y. That's not necessary. She can stay Jazz. So, yeah. It's an interesting one, this one, and it's a nice one. It closes out the Baba Yaga trilogy nicely, in that you have a resolution to the thing where the riders are, and the riders are a different story in a different book, so in a different trilogy, which, it's fine, because this book wasn't about them, so them having a dangling thread doesn't keep this from being a satisfying close to the trilogy. So yeah, this is a good modern fantasy trilogy. It's fun. It's not too heavy. It's got that bit of heaviness to lend it some gravitas, but not too much. So yeah, that's everything, and I will see you when I see you.